The main character sits on the cold floor and looks at her fallen comrades. She realizes that one of them is the first male hero, the second is lying next to him, and the rest of the idiots on the floor are the first and second sons of the Orca family, while the youngest has already fallen into an eternal sleep with his eyes open. Breathing heavily, the girl realizes that in this reincarnation, she again failed to survive the age of 22. This world turns out to be the pages of a book in the genre of raising children. At 20, 21, and 22 years old, the young lady is already reborn here for the third time. And yet, being born into a villainous family is not a crime. She's caught up in a sweet story about raising children, but there's no one living here as miserably as she is. At this moment, the girl notices someone's shadow approaching her and raises her head. A dragon stands before her, and she looks at it in shock because she has never seen a living dragon. The girl immediately understands that in front of her is that very dragon duke, and then it dawns on her that it would all be over if these crazy male heroes hadn't driven him crazy. Then everything would be fine, and she can't understand why they bothered him at all. Did they really want this ending? And could a book about raising children end with a mass immersion into eternal sleep? Thinking about it, she thinks they are complete idiots. When she opens her eyes again, she is shocked to think that Soul is really visible behind the dragon, and she does not understand why she can see it. A thought comes into her head that what if she goes in there now? Then perhaps he will be able to return home to his real world. But at this moment, the guy just raises his hand. He begins to use force, and the young lady realizes that this is her third life in a book of the parenting genre, and now she smiles. She watches as the dragon prepares to put her into eternal sleep, and thinks that in the next life, she will definitely master the dragon. After some time, women in one of the mansions begin to whisper. One of them wonders if this girl is the current generation's dragon bride. They say that she has not awakened her powers since birth, and if she really is the dragon's bride, then she will simply be sold. Therefore, they believe that at least in this way, she should be of use to the family, and the main character gets angry, realizing that she hears all this. But then she thinks, let them chat as much as they want, because in this life she will definitely become the dragon's bride. This world is called I Became the Terminally Ill Daughter of the Duke of Black Panther, and the girl tried to change the original to live well. But every time she failed, and I felt disgusting. However, this was not the end. Reincarnations were repeated, and she also received the curse of time, having experienced failures in the first and second lives. All this happened during an attempt to seduce the main character. And in her third life, which began with ambition, she fell for the trick of the novel's protagonist and died in a mass immersion into eternal sleep. But the power of the Dragon Duke she saw before closing her eyes was incredibly valuable, and with it, perhaps she could return home. Now the young lady, together with the maid, is heading to her room. The girl is carelessly placed on the bed, and she involuntarily screams. Rubbing her side, she thinks she could have been more careful. The maid closes the door, and the girl realizes that there is still no leniency towards the little ones here. However, this is not surprising for her. After all, in this family she is considered a useless creature. But the girl thinks that this is only for now. A woman enters the room and asks if she is there. It is the current head of the Orca family, Agula Aquasiadel. And the young lady realizes that if she thinks about it, today is that day. The maid confirms this, turning to the head of the family. The woman looks at the girl thoughtfully, and then the young lady realizes that today she will receive a name. A woman asks about the power of water. The maid turns over several pages of the report, and while she's doing this, the young lady realizes that this is the name for a special ability that has been passed down in the Orca family from generation to generation. With it, sea werewolves can freely use their power on land. And the stronger the werewolf, the fewer restrictions he feels outside the sea. The woman just clicks her tongue and says that they brought her a useless thing. She turns around, and the maid cautiously asks about the child's name. The head of the family says that the girl will be called Calypso, Calypso Aquasiadel. The maid agrees, and the young lady wonders if that's all. The girl understands that this cannot continue, otherwise she will fall into eternal sleep, abandoned. So the young lady rises from her seat, and he screams, asking them to wait. The head of the house and the maid turn around in shock. They ask what she just said. The girl only loudly pronounces the word grandmother. The head of the family asks if she could speak before and who taught her. The maid doesn't understand at first, but then says that at 2 years old, children can speak simple words. But the woman clarifies, isn't it known that orcas, children up to 5 years of age, speak with hesitation? After this, she begins to approach the baby, and the girl understands that she has succeeded. The head of the house asks to repeat, and the main character says grandmother again, reaching out her hands to her. The woman notices that the girl not only speaks, but also listens and understands. The maid apologizes, saying that she did not hear about this from the nannies. And the main character understands that this is the ability of the reincarnated, even if this old poker doesn't realize it. The woman smiles. Has a genius really appeared among the fish idiots? At this moment, the girl shouts out that Grandma has a fish head. The woman only sighs heavily. Then he lifts the young lady into his arms. And he says that she is quite cunning. She notes that the girl looks like Pierre, but for a dumb girl without powers, her mind is developing too quickly. So the woman asks if the girl can prove her usefulness. The young lady remembers how she always left without saying a word. And he reaches out to his grandmother's hair. With a warm smile on his face, she pulls out a strand of hair. The woman is surprised, and the maid is in complete shock. The girl clutches her lock of hair and thinks that she will definitely prove it, after which she calls her grandmother again. She says that she knows how to speak well and will prove it, mentally adding that she will definitely return home. The maid watches what is happening in amazement, and the head of the family begins to laugh loudly. She asks how someone like Pierre, who gave up on life, could have such a girl. After this, Calypso is thrown back into the carriage, and the woman says that it is good. The young lady thinks she is still being treated like a child. The woman says she is postponing the punishment and will send her little girl to school this summer. The maid agrees with the head's decision. As she leaves, the woman says that if there are no results there, the girl will be expelled. The main character thinks that they will watch again, because when she grows up and becomes the best, she will disappear from this family forever. The woman turns around and adds that there will be no second chance. And the young lady understands that her goal now is to live safely to the age of 10. Looking at her hands, she realizes that her body is still weak, and if she is sent to an educational institution, she needs a guardian for comfort. She understands that even without an educational institution, she has no way to survive on her own. The maid puts the girl on the floor. He bows and says that he will change his place of service in a week. The main character notices how the maid's behavior has changed after recognizing her ability and allows her to go. The young lady is left alone with her thoughts. She understands that among all these madmen, she needs to find an adult with overwhelming power, whom everyone fears. Someone who can understand her not yet awakened power of water. She also needs a person with unusual interests who does not seek power within the family. The young lady understands that he did not come when she was born and did not take care of her older brothers either. This means that in this family, one cannot get attached to anyone, so one must not let this man realize that she is his daughter. And even though he looks weak, his strength is enormous, so if she were to attract his attention, help would still be possible. At this moment, the young lady opens the door to one of the rooms. She walks inside and immediately understands. Her father's name is Pierre. The girl remembers how, in a past life, the servants discussed what her father was doing and thinks who would have known that that chatter would ever come in handy. Now the young lady sees her father for the first time. She looks at him more closely, and he realizes that it really is him, after which he falls silent for a moment. Then she addresses him as uncle and says hello. After that, he asks if he knows the way to the educational institution. She understands that in her past lives, she always fell into eternal sleep too early and never saw her father, and now it is clear why they talk about the evil fate of beauties. The man just looks at the girl without saying a word. The young lady is shocked and wonders if he is simply ignoring her. A moment later, the man says that she is going the wrong way. The girl replies that she still needs to get there and asks if the man could take her there. But he says he doesn't want to and advises her to go in the opposite direction. The young lady realizes that things are not so simple and climbs to the edge of the fountain. She rummages through her bag and thinks about how to get closer to her father, whether she will really have to treat him to food. The girl holds out her hand with a dried fruit, says that she collected them herself, and offers one. But the man ignores her again. The main character eats the dried fruit herself and thinks that she didn't expect anything else. Then she says that he, like her, is completely alone, but there is still no answer. The girl starts to get angry and wonders if her father will continue to ignore her, after which she speaks quietly and asks if he has friends and if he spends his days alone. There is no answer, and she realizes that today it was enough just to catch his eye, after which she jumps off the fountain and says that it is time for her to go. She says goodbye to her uncle and says that they will see each other again. After this, the girl leaves. The man stays and wonders if this girl is really his daughter. But then he realizes that she doesn't seem to know who he is. The young lady is sure that he will continue to think this way because he could not help but recognize her. That same evening, the girl opens the door again, and he understands that the appearance of the direct and collateral lines of kinship is very different. If you look closely, she and her father are similar in character. She has the same cold indifference and arrogance. The young lady recalls the maid, saying that she had no abilities and was too much of a maintenance worker, and that it was better to get rid of her as soon as possible. Now she understands that this is how young orcas are kept, and if the ability does not awaken, she will remain here until she falls into eternal sleep. The young lady realizes that in such a crazy situation, she urgently needs Pierre's help. With a smile on her face, the girl understands that this is even for the best. She not only interested Pierre, but she was also confident that she could demonstrate her genius. Now the girl is on the street and understands that she went out in the morning specifically to meet Pierre. So she wonders if there is something she can do about this weak body. The young lady tries to use her powers, but nothing works for her. She thinks that her older brothers are born with abilities and strong bodies, but she still doesn't understand why she was left out. In her past life, she managed to obtain the treasure of Rhinos, known as the tear of the water dragon, and awaken the power of water. But now she understands that she cannot rush to search for valuables because Pierre's attention is most important. At that moment, she hears strange voices. Someone asks if this is really where they are and if they are mistaken. The girl hides around the corner and sees two guys, one of whom confidently says that this is exactly the place. The young lady wonders who they are and what they are doing here. One guy says that there is a newborn direct descendant here, and the other one replies that he understands, but she still can't use the power of water. He adds that they say she will be sold to the dragon as a bride. The second one claims that the girl has received the recognition of the head of the family and has moved to the main building, and if she is not suppressed now, she will become a hindrance to Mr. Bean. The main character realizes that Bean is the first son of her eldest uncle. So these two are from the sideline who voluntarily became servants, and one of them adds that when Mr. Bean is angry, he is very scary. The young lady understands that they serve the probable heir and therefore neglect other direct descendants. The young man with gray hair says that it is necessary to make sure that the girl does not think about anything else. The young lady understands that she has no strength now and needs to run, but when she tries to do this, she accidentally steps on a branch. The boys hear a sound and immediately turn around. They notice the young lady and ask if it is she. The main character, with a forced smile, realizes that she has fallen into a trap. After this, she starts running away from these two. After a little while, the girl, exhausted, realizes that she is tired. And it won't last long. Suddenly, she trips and falls, realizing that she has been caught. One of the guys asks if she is really a direct descendant of the family, because she looks too worthless. He also asks how she gained the recognition of the head of the family without knowing how to use the power of water. The baby just looks at them angrily. She clenches her fist and says that she speaks well, and that they are just from the sideline, serving the immature Bean. One guy, shocked, asks if the girl really said what she said and wonders how old she is. Another one confirms that he heard it too, and turns to the little girl. He says he wondered how she came to the attention of the head of the family without the power of water, but turned out to be just a harmful insect, capable of only this. But when he points his finger at her, the young lady suddenly grabs him. And he bites, causing the young man to scream. In shock, he begins to shake his hand and swear. The young lady lets him go, and the young man grabs his finger, not believing what has happened. The girl asks if he has said everything and shouts out that insects are land creatures, and that the fish heads don't dare compare her to them. One of the guys asks, puzzled, what she's talking about. Another one angrily replies that she is just trying to hurt them. The main character understands that it's good that she was able to get a word in edgewise, but she won't be able to run away any further. She realizes that she has no chance, because there are two guys standing against her. Then the girl makes up her mind and cries out, do they think her father will just let it go? The boys ask again which father she is talking about. And in shock, they realize that her father is Mr. Pierre. After this, both become scared. The main character understands that during a fierce struggle for inheritance among her grandchildren, the emergence of a direct descendant who has received recognition as the head of the family. This is not good news at all. But it's still too much when two adults attack one girl. One of the guys shouts at her not to lie, because why would Mr. Pierre care about her, and the other supports her, saying that he is the one who ignores the orders of the head of the family. The young lady asks what they are talking about, as she was just on her way to meet her dad, thinking to herself that it wouldn't hurt to embellish a little. The girl then asks what her father will say when he sees her being treated this way by her relatives under Bean. One of the guys suggests leaving, saying that this all looks too strange. The other guy breaks free and screams, demanding to be let go. After all, before leaving, they decided that they should teach the girl good manners, and she also has to pay for biting his finger. The young lady closes her eyes and thinks that if she only had the power of water, everything would have turned out differently. Then she would definitely be able to fight back. And at that moment, the power of the water suddenly embraces the guy. The young lady opens her eyes and wonders if this is a water vortex. The guy's friend starts shaking him and shouting at him to come to his senses. Then he adds that they said the girl can't use the power of water, and he doesn't understand what happened. After this, he carries his friend away and shouts that they will meet again. When the boys leave, the young lady just gives them the middle finger. And then he looks at his hands and wonders what that was. She wonders if this is a sudden awakening of the power of water, and rejoices, because she is a genius after all. The girl adds that she is so dirty that she will not be able to go to meet her father, and she still needs to heal the wound. At this time, the man finishes using his powers, and he wonders, with surprise, whether the girl really knew who he really was. The young lady just says that she misses the times when she was the coolest. This makes the guy even more confused, and she thinks what it means to be cool. After that incident, the young lady tried to use the power of water many times, but nothing worked. And having failed again, she says that she knew it, the power did not awaken. And she was already overjoyed. At that moment, someone knocked on the door and asked if the lady was there. The main character turns around and allows entry. A girl with red hair comes into the room and says that her name is Misa, and from today she will be working here. She adds that she hopes to get along with the lady, and the main character wonders if the mistress really promoted her to lady. The woman says that the day has already been set for the girl to go to primary school, and the main character realizes that she has seen this girl somewhere before. Then he notices the scales on her neck and remembers. After all, fighting foreign werewolves requires 2 conditions. The first is a commander with the power of water. The second is a werewolf who can find a source of water. In a squad without such a leader, a source is not necessary. The girl just smiles, and the young lady understands that if her memory is correct, then Misa has an outstanding ability, although she herself does not know it yet. The main character decides that this girl might be useful and worth remembering. The woman asks where the lady is going now. The young lady replies that she is going for a walk, and the maid warns that there are many destroyed buildings nearby, and it could be dangerous to be alone. Then she asks if they can go together. The young lady looks at her and remembers how badly the other maids treated her. Then he turns to the red-haired lady and says that she is kind. The woman is embarrassed. The young lady thanks her, but says that she is fine alone. After which he goes for a walk. A little later, the girl approaches the fountain and greets the man. He asks if she has lost her way again, and the young lady replies that she has not, and asks if he thinks she is an idiot. She thinks about what to say so that he doesn't ignore her. And then an idea comes to her mind, and she asks if he knows how to use the power of water. The guy responds with a question. So what if he can? The young lady asks him to teach her, and says he'll be good at it. He asks why, and she replies she doesn't know, it's just the way he looks. Then she adds that she really wants to learn. She says she's giving him a chance to raise a genius. The guy grins and asks who she takes after for being so brazen. The young lady replies that she looks like her dad. She says her dad is handsome and very strong, so he's the coolest person in the world. The man asks if he was like that. The young lady says that her dad also loves her very much. He loves and appreciates her, worries about her health, and cries when she is injured. The young lady remembers her father on Earth, who took care of her, and how, together with her mother, they surrounded her with such love that she forgot that she was adopted. She understands that family, which you can't trade for anything, is priceless. And if only to see her mom and dad again, she must return home. The man asks why she doesn't study with her father. The young lady replies that dad is busy and it seems he has nothing to do, so let him help her. Suddenly the girl feels the force of water pressing on her. She turns around and sees that her father did it. But the young lady is not afraid and says that she will soon go to school. And to be the first there, she needs the power of water. The guy replies that if you unwisely cause awakening, you can plunge into eternal sleep. The young lady says everything is fine, and that you only live once, so what if you don't survive? He replies that he doesn't understand the connection between an educational institution and the power of water. She asks how there's no connection, because to be the best, strength is simply necessary. The man thinks, it's strange how children are raised these days. The main character says that her dad wants her to become an excellent killer whale. The guy wonders why she is lying so brazenly, knowing that he is her father, and the young lady asks the uncle to help her. The guy remains silent in response. The young lady says that if you look closely, she is very smart, and if he helps her a little. At that moment, she feels herself being lifted by the force of the water. The man wonders what the girl will do if the beginning and end of her words do not match. She is exposed, and he asks if she thinks that the one who wants her to become strong but does not help truly loves her. The main character smiles and replies that, of course, her dad loves her very much. After all, for her, dad is the best and the coolest, and the strongest man in the world. The man tells her to decide everything herself over time. Then he adds that he will not take age into account, and that she should come here every day at the same time. The young lady doesn't understand what he means at first. And then, realizing that he agreed, she begins to smile brightly. She speaks well and asks what she should call him, uncle or teacher, and the guy replies that it's whatever he wants. The young lady decides to call him teacher, and he understands that since Pierre has decided to help, the awakening of the power is only a matter of time. Calypso realizes that she doesn't regret this meeting or decision one bit. She remembers that in her past life she awakened the power of water by receiving a treasure. But this was only the beginning, because it was necessary to learn to control the force. Luckily, she met a strange man and was able to learn this. The girl then asked if the young lady knew any ways to try one of them. Now she understands that if you are exposed to the power of water for a long time, you can master it yourself. And she thinks that this is how she learned to control her power, although at that time she really thought that she would fall into eternal sleep. Pierre says they will start by exposing themselves to the power of water, and the young lady asks what he means. The man just tells her to dive in. The young lady asks again, and he tells her to dive into the water. He says awakening often occurs in moments of life-threatening danger, but the young lady cries out that it doesn't. Then he adds that there are other options. She asks what kind, and he replies that they are mostly very painful trials. The young lady is silent for a moment, and then he says that it's better to just dive into the water. And so he does, thinking that the difficulty of the training is too high. This is too much of a burden for her age. But he insists that first a body must be created that can withstand the force of water. The man makes her move a lot. At some point, the young lady feels her body strangely relax, and she even begins to go deeper under the water. But then she realizes what is happening, and suddenly jumps out of the fountain. Leaning against the side, she realizes that she really did almost fall into eternal sleep. And then she catches her father's gaze. He asks if the girl is really an amoeba. And then he adds that even an amoeba reacts to irritation, and its data for awakening the power of water is worse than expected. The young lady replies that even if a teacher hurts with words, it still hurts. She asks as if he took her age into account, and realizes that she is being reborn for the 4th time and has long forgotten how children behave, and her father does not understand them at all. The man says, what does age have to do with it if anyone can master this training? And the young lady understands that even though he says so, she still felt some movement inside her body for a moment. But he understands that this is not enough to compare with his older brothers who are considered geniuses. And yet, with a smile, he realizes that in this life, success is just around the corner. After a little while, someone informs the lady that they have arrived. The young lady gets out of the carriage and understands that from this day on she will officially study at the institution. In her 2nd life, she was immediately sold. In her 3rd, she was quickly expelled, and the hero's path always resembled stormy waves. At this point, they turn to the little girl and say that they have heard a lot about her. It turns out to be a woman with silver hair who says that she is in charge of the elementary school, and her name is Layla. The girl realizes that she has met the headmistress of the elementary school again. She remembers why she was expelled in her 3rd life, when she fell for the trick of the children from the collateral line of the family. One boy claimed that the lady had stolen his gem, another confirmed and said that they had found it in Calypso's bag, and the girl replied that it was a lie. Then the woman entered the room, ordered the argument to cease, and offered to hear the whole story from beginning to end, and the young lady realized that this was her first meeting with Layla. Layla said that there was little evidence, and that it was only their belief, which meant that Calypso could not be called guilty, and the young lady understood that despite the defense of this calm and reasonable woman, she was quickly expelled anyway, and later, when she returned to become the head of the family, she could find no trace of Layla anywhere. Now the young lady just lifts the hem of her dress and says that she is glad to meet Layla. The woman is slightly surprised and replies that, of course, she has heard of her. But she is still amazed because the 3-year-old girl speaks perfectly and knows etiquette very well, after which she offers to take her to class, and the young lady agrees. As they walk, Calypso is a little surprised. And she understands that Layla is walking at her pace, which means she is worried that the girl doesn't fall behind. The woman comes to the door, says that it is here, and invites her in, and the young lady thinks that in her past life she never had time to thank her. Layla walks into a room with babies who can't even speak and asks everyone to pay attention, introducing them to Lady Calypso, who will study with them from today on. The maids start whispering, and one says that the new lady is really beautiful and speaks as well as the rumors say. Layla ponders, realizing that the inability of a direct descendant of the orcas to control the power of water is a serious flaw. The girl turns to her at that moment, and Layla thinks that because of the late development of killer whales, children usually start talking only at 7 or 8 years old, but it seems the girl really is a genius, and the rumors are not empty. However, if there is a deception or a secret calculation behind this, she will definitely reveal it. She is about to do so, but at that moment the maid asks what to do now. She says that this is not the way to conduct a lesson, and the lady is too smart for this class. The girl sits among the little children, and when the boy offers her a cube, she politely refuses and says that she does not play such games. The boy starts to cry, and she sternly says that outstanding killer whales do not cry. The girl pulls the candy towards her, and the young lady notices that it is a plankton candy. She strokes the baby's head and says that she will accept it with gratitude. Then the young lady turns to Layla and asks how she is. And do we need more time to check everything? Layla sighs and replies that no, she will have to go to a higher class, and asks which class she wants to go to. The young lady understands that everything is going according to plan, and she has been waiting for this moment. She knows that she must become special to her grandmother. And first, she must become a genius child. Then, along with other 8-year-old kids, she will be transferred to the Alpha class, where the smartest and oldest children of the family study. So she asks if there are children at school who speak better than her, and she understands that Layla no longer treats her like an ordinary 3-year-old child. Layla replies that yes, the baby is simply amazing. Then he adds that no, Calypso is superior to them all, but she will have to answer for each choice herself and asks if she agrees. Layla thinks that since her 3rd brother entered school, she has not felt such confusion in a long time. Several maids watch from behind the door, and Layla asks who told the young lady about the class division. The baby looks at the peeping maids, and then he says that Dad told him, and one of them, in shock, asks the other if it really was Mr. Pierre. The young lady adds that her daddy loves her very much, and that is why he told her everything. Layla is silent. Then, a little puzzled, he says that he will first take her to the chosen class, and the young lady agrees. Layla recalls rumors that Pierre never came to see the children, and everyone knew it. And he thinks that perhaps they met secretly and have a good relationship. So one wonders if Mr. Pierre really cares about his daughter. After all, rumors often differ from reality. And she understands that even if the girl does not yet possess the power of water, with Pierre's support, her awakening is only a matter of time. Layla wonders if Calypso might be more than just another genius offspring. Perhaps she is the new contender for the role of successor, and Calypso's plan worked better than she expected. Later, the young lady says that everything went much better, and the father asks what she means. Calypso smiles and replies that everything went well because she was recognized for her outstanding abilities. The man says he doesn't understand why she's so happy, because if she doesn't master the power of water, she'll fail. The young lady replies that the teacher is spoiling the mood again, but she understands him. After all, even at 3 years old, she knows how to deal with silent people like him. The father asks if she wants him to add 10 more circles today, and the young lady realizes that this will give her a total of 33 lines for the essay. She tells the teacher to see if he has ever seen such a resilient 3-year-old anywhere else, and that soon she will be so strong that she will be able to crush stones. The man notices that this is strange because she does not create water, but her body still develops. Then he tells her to follow him. After all, they will have training. The young lady is surprised, and they head towards one of the palaces. After looking around, the girl says that the teacher's house is magnificent. But he understands that compared to Pierre's power, this residence is insignificant. His grandmother simply doesn't notice him. They enter the room, and the young lady asks the teacher, "Did they end up in a pigsty?" Pierre says that he is uncomfortable with such a comparison with land animals. The young lady apologizes, but asks what kind of dump this is, and he replies with a sigh that this is his room. Then he orders her to use the power of water to clean everything up here. The young lady asks again what exactly to do, and he says to put it away, and Calypso replies that she heard everything. She asks if it's true that the training is based on that the power of water is strongest when you want to hit someone, or perhaps awakening is connected with patience, for strength requires endurance. Pierre says that sometimes she speaks as if she is already familiar with this power. And it's as if she's already used it, and the girl is slightly surprised. Pierre adds that this is impossible, but the girl thinks that it is possible. After all, in her past life she was the best among the underwater creatures, and now she asks, so does she really need to clean? Pierre replies that it needs to be polished to a shine, and the young lady asks if there are those who scatter and those who clean, and he says that everything is correct. And this makes the main character shake with anger. She realizes that this killer whale seems to have forgotten that she is only 3 years old, and cries out that she does not want to. After a while, she relents and asks if this means she has to clean using the power of water. The guy replies that yes, and that there are several ways to use this power. The first way is fear, when you put pressure on the enemy with your power. The second is the materialization of water, and using it for your own purposes. The third is the removal of the restrictions that the beastmen have on land. The fourth is strengthening your own body with the power of water. The man says that now she is only capable of strengthening, and if awakening is near, then the only way is to continue using the force. Calypso wonders if he really made a mess of things here for the sake of her training, and she finds herself thinking that she would have to look hard to find a father like him. When the young lady is already putting a pile of documents into the box, she turns to the teacher. But he doesn't answer, and she realizes that he has again that very expression on the face of a person who is not attached to anything in this world. And Calypso wonders if all sick people are like him. She notices a handkerchief on the nightstand and asks the teacher where she should put it. The man tells her to throw it away. He says it's a useless thing, but Calypso understands that if Pierre reacts like that, then it should not be thrown away under any circumstances. She puts the handkerchief in her pocket and says that she understands and will throw it away, and then asks if it is his thing, and he replies that it is not. Then he adds that the scarf belonged to his wife, and the girl realizes that he answered too quickly. She has already lived several lives, but she only knows 2 facts about her mother, that she was a killer whale and a good person, and nothing more. The man asks if she is going to dig around here all night, and the young lady thinks how stubborn he is. She wants to ask, but she doesn't dare, although she is curious, and her father says that it seems that training is too easy for her. Calypso cries out that it is not so, and he tells her to hurry, and she realizes that her strength has already increased compared to just running. But the longer she uses the power, the more she begins to succumb to it. Pierre, watching her rush around and scold him, even smiles slightly. The next day, Calypso wakes up with aches all over her body, and the maid asks if she will live here as she asked. The girl replies that yes, because if she returns home, it will be difficult for her to see Pierre, and he even promised to do the laundry next time. At this point, Lila says she will take her to class, and Calypso notices that she is more polite today than yesterday. Layla says that in just 24 hours the girl became famous, and rumors about her reached 16 related families of orcas. Calypso wonders if everyone really found out so quickly, and Layla says that every teacher had their own version yesterday. The young lady asks if they are that talkative, and Layla replies that one of them was a flying fish. Calypso realizes that the species is known for its talkativeness, and Lila adds that scandalous facts spread faster than anything else. The girl says that it turns out that she turned out too ordinary, and Layla replies that maybe someone would have liked more of a scandal. Calypso realizes that her grandmother stands at the center of the orcas' hierarchy. There are 32 related families around her, and therefore Calypso's story is a big problem for them. They choose and support successors, and with Layla she approaches the stairs and begins to climb. Layla says that the lady is not only good at speaking, but also at climbing stairs easily at 3 years old, and Calypso replies that this is true. She thinks that this is enough to compare her to Bean, Solte, and Bellis, the sons of her uncle and the genius of the century. So she asks what Layla thinks about it, and she replies that every action she takes is amazing. Calypso says it's too early to be surprised, because this is just the beginning. Layla stops at the door and says that this is the alpha class, inviting them in. Calypso says that within 24 hours, the word about her as a genius had already spread, and asks if she looks worthy of the best class. Layla replies that she can't deny it, but Calypso is already running ahead. Lila thinks that a storm will soon arise, because beastmen inherit the character of their parents. Calypso asks to tell her grandmother that this is the first time she has met such a brilliant child. Layla thinks that whales are generally peaceful and tolerant, but there are exceptions among them, and these are the killer whales, and soon they announce that lessons are over for today. The students are asked to build figures out of blocks, but the boy cries and says that Karan is hitting him. The teacher reprimands Karan and tells him to mind his own business. Karan replies that he understands, and Calypso remarks that he is orca. He sighs and says he's tired of these childish games, and the other boys agree. The Beluga twins look at him with resentment, and he declares that they are not yet up to his level. One of them says that Karan is doing it again, and he asks menacingly what's wrong. The teacher asks for attention and introduces the new student, Lady Calypso, asking everyone to welcome her. Karan understands from her hair that she is the daughter of Monsieur Pierre. He recalls rumors that the girl was useless and that they wanted to give her to the dragon, and they asked how Pierre could have such a daughter. The teacher asks Calypso to introduce herself. Karan thinks why this useless girl came and let her get ready to wipe away her tears. Calypso says she's glad to meet her and understands that Orca School teaches survival. She is confident that she will be the best here and says that her name is Calypso Aquaciadel and hopes that the class will live up to expectations. The teacher asks for a round of applause and tells everyone to sit down to play with the blocks. When Calypso sits down, Karan says that this is the hair color of a direct descendant. The girl understands that here he is, and Karen says that she is still small and strange. Calypso stands up and asks him to calm down and not talk, and then asks who he is and how old he is. Karan replies that he is 8. Calypso says that at 8 years old he should be in middle school, and if he's still here, he's a loser. She adds that she is 3 years old, and asks if he is ashamed to sit with such little children. Karan screams that this is nonsense and that you can't talk to her normally until she's 5, and Calypso asks how dare he compare her to himself. Karan raises her fist and yells that she is a nasty girl. He attacks, but Calypso dodges and he hits the floor. Calypso says he needs to learn some manners first. Karan shakes and screams that she almost put him into eternal sleep, and Calypso tells him to think about the difference in size. After that, she grabs him by the collar, and she hits him with her forehead, and then picks up a stone and says that she didn't mean to use force. But he will not tolerate insults and crushes the stone. Karan gets scared, and Calypso says that he taught her not to fall under the fists of fools. Camilla and Layla are surprised because the girl has not yet awakened the power of water. Layla thinks that Karan is mentally inferior to her, but physically superior, and yet she defeated him. And rumors about this will spread throughout all families. Calypso understands that everything is going according to plan, because now she is in the alpha class and all attention is on her. The teacher says that to become the best whale, you need to study a lot, and the children agree. After class, when Calypso goes out into the hallway, 2 boys run up to her. They want to get to know each other, and Calypso realizes that the day was not wasted. The boys ask to save their class because Karan is bullying them and ask to defeat him. Calypso remembers Lila's words that she won't have to stay in elementary school for long. She smirks and thinks that these are beluga beastmen. They are smart and fair. Almost all dolphins are like that. One says he is Ruba, the other says he is Ruga, and together they are Ruga Ruba, and Calypso wonders how Karan could beat them. Calypso repeats their name and laughs. She says that they are the first ones who wanted to meet her and let them take care of her. She remembers a man who didn't like such words and said that he only does what he likes because he is smart. In the third life, the strategist was arrested, but his intelligence could be admired, and one of the guys shouts that they should be grateful to the lady. They say that their mother taught them to be kind to their first friend, and so did their father, but Calypso replies that their mother meant something else. One asks if she has trouble walking up the stairs, and she says it's fine. And suddenly, her feet lift off the floor. The boys pick her up and say that they are helping their comrades, because from today on she is their comrade. The maid is surprised, but Calypso has already resigned herself to it. The boys at the carriage wave to her, and she realizes that she has some nice subordinates. But when she returns to the house, she sees that all the courtiers have come out to greet her. The man says he is honored to meet her, and Calypso asks what is going on. The butler explains that it was her wish to remain here, and orders came from the main palace to make her stay comfortable. And Calypso understands why everyone has such expressions. The girl decides that everything is going perfectly, and she'll be able to gradually expand her influence. She says she likes it here and will choose the nanny herself. Calypso points to Misa and says that she was the one who treated her kindly, so the choice falls on her. The girl adds that Misa was especially careful about her nutrition, and the man asks if she is sure of her words. The young lady replies that yes, they just don't know about it in the main palace, while there are many rumors here about food being neglected. The man says it's for the survival of the fittest. Calypso replies that she knows this is the rule of the Orca family. But she wonders if all families force children to endure scalding hot baths and cruelty. The girl says she doesn't think this is a common ordeal for everyone. The man is shocked and asks if she wants to say that something like that happened here. Calypso replies that this is why she is thinking of telling her father everything. The butler, shocked, asks if she plans to tell Monsieur Pierre everything. The girl replies that her father simply cares about her life. After this, Calypso takes Misa by the dress and says that since everything is decided, let her take care of her. The man turns to Lady Calypso and says that if she allows it, they will investigate the rumors. Realizing that they cannot delay, the girl says she's fine, but other children could have been hurt, and silently promises to hold those responsible accountable. Then she adds that she'll talk to her dad. Calypso looks at Misa. She leans towards her mistress and says that she will do everything in her power. A little while later, Misa is already going to hang out the laundry. She recalls the girl's words about cruelty to children and how this is not just a test. Calypso sits with a book and suddenly remembers something, realizing that in one of her lives, the Beluga family was exterminated. Misa thinks that they were wrong to say that this girl was a genius. And Calypso reflects that belugas and dolphins are very smart beast people, but in her third life they were destroyed before she could do anything. And Bean, her uncle's son, did it simply because they irritated him. The girl understands that there's no need to seek allies for the war. She'll leave here soon anyway and must become stronger for her grandmother's sake. At this time, several maids approach her from behind and frighten her, asking if she is studying. One says that the rumors are true, and the girl is really smart. The other is touched by her little hands holding books. Calypso answers them, and the maids immediately admire her sweet voice. After a while, the girl asks if they are herring. They answer yes, adding that they have been friends since childhood. They introduce themselves. The dark-haired one says her name is Ikia, the redhead says her name is Vikia, and the blonde says her name is Tete. Calypso realizes she was wrong to worry about the maids from the main palace. The girls say Lady Calypso is smart, sweet, and well-spoken. They add that even Bellis and Atlan weren't like this when they were kids. The girl asks them not to overpraise her, and says she wants to introduce them to someone. She points to Misa and says she's her nanny, hoping they'll get along. The girls are surprised, come over, and introduce themselves. They say that since she's a nanny, there's no need for formalities. Calypso says that then they should stay, and she'll go to her dad. The girl understands that if she stays, she will not escape their chatter. But she is pleased that this place feels like a real home, full of life. A couple of days later, Calypso thinks about how calm her life has become compared to the past. Everything is great, except for one thing. Now, looking at the clothes in the fountain, she asks the teacher if this is really a training session. A man watches her from the window, and he asks if it really wasn't clear the first time. He forces the soap on her and tells her to get started. Calypso looks at her father in shock and wonders what kind of strange man he is. The training is getting crazier, and she wonders whoever said Pierre likes cleanliness. These mountains of dirty clothes say otherwise, and the girl wonders if he really spent a whole year saving them. She asks how to rinse, and her father replies that she still can't summon water. Calypso says she's managed to cope with an 8-year-old, and that's enough, but Pierre replies that then she's not a direct descendant. The girl says that's why she doesn't like talking to geniuses like him. But she is respected in the class, and Pierre asks if this is true, since the Orcas, children are not the best now. Calypso remembers her brothers and understands why they called their father weird, but she still thinks she is the best. And yet, he never did a botched job, so criticism can only be justified. The girl says she can't get her clothes wet properly, and asks what to do. Her father replies that it's time to use force. Calypso tries and succeeds. She asks if he sees it, because she did it. The girl understands that if she concentrates all her weight in one point, her body will cope. She says that everything turned out just as he said, and that he really is the best teacher. As it gets dark, Calypso finishes washing and realizes that Pierre knows she is his daughter. She smiles brightly and thinks about her whole life. Pierre always attracted attention, but he himself did not strive for anything. One day, Calypso's mother asked Mr. Orca if he wanted to argue. The girl wrings out her clothes and sees Pierre approaching. She says she's not finished yet and asks why he came down. The man recalls being told that one day he'll be surprised to see someone like himself. Calypso says she can't believe she was able to do all this because she's amazing. Pierre replies that it wasn't difficult. The girl says that even without knowing whose daughter she is, she's still so beautiful. She wonders if it's possible to mistakenly call him Dad, and with a smile she says that she is Daddy's girl. Pierre is surprised, remains silent, and then asks if she speaks like that about someone who has never come to her. Calypso gets angry and thinks that means he understands how bad it is. Pierre says that the longer he watches her, the more he realizes that she is not stupid. The girl smiles and says it's because he's teaching her. Pierre replies that he doesn't blab about his father at the drop of a hat, and Calypso says she's doing as he taught her. Then she sees his empty gaze and asks why he lives alone. And does he like it when there are a lot of people around? Pierre recalls the words about being a vessel for too much power. He says it's easier without annoying people. Calypso asks if that's why he looks like he doesn't care and could disappear. Pierre recalls how the servants whispered that such strength came from a weak body, and he says he can't deny it. Calypso raises her hand and hits him on the leg. Pierre is surprised, and Calypso screams at how he can say such things so easily. The girl understands that many people live worse than him and tells him not to throw around such words in front of a brilliant 3-year-old child. She says that he is wasting his time and that she works tirelessly and that it is impossible to live like this. Calypso says he needs to see the good in her. Pierre asks what she's talking about, and the girl replies that he's training her. She proposes becoming business partners. Pierre is surprised that she knows such words. Calypso smiles and tells him to trust her, and she will show him how beautiful life is. Pierre recalls rumors that he doesn't know if they are true. But lately his daughter has been telling everyone that he loves her, and he is wondering what benefit this gives him. Calypso asks what he is doing and tells him to go faster because he is too slow. Pierre thinks that this child is incredible and has never made a mistake when addressing him. After a while, Calypso is building with blocks, and someone asks if she has done everything. The two boys say they are finished and ask permission to play hide and seek, inviting her to come along, but Calypso doesn't play such games. One says how cool she is and how much like their father. The other wants to learn to talk like that. Calypso replies that they'll be able to when they grow up. One says that their mother wants to meet her and thank her. Another says Karan used to hit them hard, but now he's less so, all thanks to her. Calypso calls him a scoundrel and asks if she should hit him again. The boys shout that they will be grateful to her for the rest of their lives. Calypso smiles and thinks how faithful they are. She says that she doesn't need anything in return, just let them answer one question. Calypso asks if they have ever cooked fish, realizing that fish and sea creatures are different. The boys talk excitedly about cooking, then look at each other. They say they did, and their dad cooks fish really well. Calypso asks if it's true, and he suggests finding out something from their dad. A little while later, Calypso is outside, and the maid is feeding her. When she eats, the maids admire her and realize that they have brought her lunch. Ilia asks how Lady Calypso has such a white and sweet face. The other says that she has never seen such a gentle child. Calypso thinks the herrings are friendly, but don't go that far. She understands that food is important for growth. Now she needs growth and a dragon. Tate says there will be a dragon festival again this year and asks if it's true. Calypso thinks that the Dragon Festival is a grand celebration of the imperial family in the City of Dragons. This is a celebration that shows the power and authority of the imperial family. This once again shows that the Dragon Duke's power is under the close control of the imperial family. At this time, Ilia asks in surprise if this time they will only invite land animals and beastmen. Via sighs and says it's a shame because she so wanted to see those gray-haired ladies at least once. She calmly replies that underwater inhabitants aren't invited to such events. The main character realizes that this is true and thinks about how much she would like to see the Dragon Duke one day. Suddenly, a red-haired maid asks if they heard that the head of the family will be back soon. The young lady is surprised and asks what "will return" means. The maids are touched by her tone and ask if she just winked. The girl replies that she didn't think so, and they ask her to do it again. She does close one eye, and the maids almost scream with delight because it looks incredibly cute. The blonde lady says that even though the chief was absent, they'll hold a family meeting after his return. The young lady replies that she's been keeping an eye on Tate and is well aware of all the latest rumors. She laughs and says that their herring sisters are everywhere. The protagonist ponders the meeting and wonders if there's a way to add her name to the family council. She realizes she can't suddenly awaken the power of water yet, and perhaps it's best to introduce herself first. And then her brothers immediately come to mind. She remembers one of them telling the other that he had defeated him and that he must now follow him as the head of the family. The second one doubted and asked for proof of victory, while the third one kept repeating one word, and the girl wondered which of these three crazy brothers would be best for her to meet. At this point, the maid turns to Mistress Calypso and asks her to say, "Ah." The girl becomes frightened and replies that she doesn't eat carrots. The maid apologizes and says she probably didn't cook it well. The young lady assures her that's not the issue, but she apologizes again and says she shouldn't be cooking. The main character laughs, takes a carrot stick, and says she'll eat it this time. The maids clap happily. After some time, they are already getting ready to return to the estate and say that they will see the lady tomorrow at lunch and bring something tasty. The main character waves them goodbye, but she can't get the family reunion out of her head and wonders what her brothers are up to. She needs to find out. The girl makes her way through the bushes and realizes that this path leads to the high school building. She knows all three of them must be there now, and if she gets caught, it will be bad, so she needs to be very careful. And suddenly, she hears someone shouting if one of the guys has gone deaf. She turns around and sees three young men. One of them mocks her and asks if he's ignoring them or simply doesn't understand. Taking a closer look, the main character recognizes him as Aganor, Calypso's third brother. Hiding in the bushes, she wonders in shock why they are making fun of him like that. The boy is shaking, almost crying. One of the bullies says that anyone who comes here should be welcomed, and by the color of his hair, it's clear he's from a collateral branch of the family. Another is surprised how someone like that even ended up in their class. Aganor asks them to stop, but they only laugh. One says he sounds like a goat that only bleats. And then the main character remembers what Aganor was like during his school years in his past life. One of the servants, when asked about those times, looked very puzzled. According to him, the guy deliberately pretended to be weak in order to provoke bullying and enjoy it. Now, one of the bullies lifts Aganor and asks why he's gone silent. The girl remembers that he put half of those who started the fights into eternal sleep. If he uses the power of water now, they could all fall into eternal sleep. And she understands that rumors about her brother's massacre of his classmates mustn't surface at the family gathering. So she jumps out of the bushes, realizing that things are about to get bad. The bully is already swinging and shouting, asking if Aganor is going to answer at all. And at that moment, someone loudly demands to stop. They turn around and see a young lady. One of the guys mockingly asks why the little girl is bothering them. Another one tells him to look at her hair. The guy doesn't understand what he's talking about, but upon looking, he freezes and asks if this is really a direct descendant. Calypso understands that such traits are only found in close relatives. One of the hooligans recalls the rumors and says that this is Pierre's daughter. The other decides it's best not to mess with people like that and suggests they leave. Before leaving, he throws Aganor down and shouts at him to consider himself lucky. As they leave, the main character sticks out her tongue at them and thinks that it doesn't sound very scary. Aganor asks why she interfered, and she sees his hair color begin to change. He asks her again why she did it, and she remembers what he was like in his past life. Then he said that if they had met earlier, he would have been ashamed of all his immature actions and injustice. He admitted that he regretted it a little and wished he had seen her earlier. But now he looks at her angrily, and she asks why he is here at all. She calls him Aganor Aquasayadel and says that he is her brother. He asks what she means, and Calypso doesn't understand what's going on, because he doesn't seem at all moved. He asks why he should be touched. The girl says she just saved him, and he is surprised, and doesn't understand what she's talking about. She points her finger at him and says she knows how he was going to put those guys into eternal sleep. Aganor tells her not to interfere in his affairs and to leave. Calypso wonders if he won't even greet her, since he could easily be kicked out of the family if he wanted to. He says he could have done it all quietly, and no one would have known. And then the little girl jumps up so suddenly that even his hair stands on end. He thinks she's fast, but he looks ahead, and he sees his sister already flying towards him with a fist. His eyes widen. Calypso hits him on the back of the head, and he clutches his head. With a smile, she realizes that this is the best way to bring him to his senses, and all thanks to her father's instructions. Aganor rubs her head and asks where she gets such strength. The girl comes closer, thinking she's quite the aggressor. She says she's just a sweet little sister who's much stronger than her older brother. He blushes and asks her not to make him laugh, adding that she irritates him terribly. When he tries to use the power of water, the baby pulls him towards her. She asks if he ever did laundry, and she lays him on his back, saying that the more you wash, the easier it becomes. He tries to get up and say something, but she asks if he's going to continue. He says yes, but gets hit on the head again. He screams that he's in pain. Calypso tells him to be careful, because even with the power of water, he can't defeat her. She asks if he admits defeat. Aganor clenches her fists and screams about how old she is and why she is so strong, as if she took some kind of pill. Calypso thinks that he hasn't even heard rumors about her, and decides that he is simply weak. She hopes that in this life, the brothers will become stronger. After all, we need someone who won't let the Dragon Duke go crazy. Therefore, the brothers must become stronger to defeat the main character, and she will personally take care of the training. She looks into Aganor's eyes and realizes that this face is ready to attack at any moment. A harsher approach is needed to curb his pride. She thinks this would be the best fit, remembers her father, and asks him to call her his little sister. He replies that he doesn't want to. Calypso comes closer and asks if he wants to become strong. She says she's strong herself and asks if he's surprised. If she wants, she'll tell him everything. Aganor lies down on the floor and asks how he can become stronger. Calypso smiles, rises, and thinks that they share the same orca blood, and how could he not tell her? She agrees but says he must listen carefully and do everything she says. He screams that he doesn't want to. She asks if he is serious and adds that then she will go to Atlanta and propose to him. Aganor gets scared and shouts that he agrees to everything. Calypso extends her hand and says that then they will do everything according to her rules. He shakes her hand in return. And she realizes that when it became clear what he was like at school, something else came to light. The servant said that his classmates initially insulted his mother, and Aganor was hurt, but no one heard him. Then the accident happened, and now Calypso tells him to listen carefully. Hitting him and putting him into eternal sleep are no longer allowed, nor are attacking him or destroying evidence. And don't even think about burying anyone. He looks puzzled, and she raises a finger and says that this rule will remain in effect until he defeats her. Once he defeats her, he can do whatever he wants. She asks if that's okay with him. They pinky seal the promise, and he says it's great. After some time, Calypso approaches her father and asks if he needs a second student. The man looks at them in surprise. She says it's her brother, and it's clear he's Pierre's son. The father asks what's wrong with that. And she adds that she is doing nonsense that is not needed. He says that since she brought him, she should send him away. Calypso tells the teacher that she defeated him today. He is surprised, and she says she tried not to get hit. She declares that she has hired him as a subordinate, but she doesn't need him. Then she asks if they can just be together. After all, he's as lonely as she is. Pierre sighs and stands up. He says that she can't be stopped, let her do what she wants, and leaves, still confused. There is a third son who suddenly started following the baby, and a daughter who pretends to know nothing, although in fact, she understands everything. He doesn't understand what she's thinking. Later, Calypso is at school, and two boys say they've made lunch to eat with her. She declines, remarking on how energetic they are. One of the servants points to the picnic. The boys admire it, and Calypso wonders if 3 children will be able to eat it all. The guys turn to her, one takes a plate and says that they want to invite her to their home and cook a lot of delicious food. She takes a plate, and they decide among themselves to ask Dad to cook the same thing. They start eating, and one of the guys hands her a letter, saying that this is what she asked for last time. Calypso thanks him. He says it's Papa, goes to him, and says goodbye to her, wishing to take care of himself. Calypso looks at the man and realizes that he looks exactly like their twin. And besides, he's a white-eared whale beast man from the Beluga family. She wasn't connected to that family in her past life, as it disappeared before she became the family's head. Initially, the title of Orca matriarch was passed down strictly through the maternal line. But Ogula was never able to give birth to a daughter. This news became a chance for grandchildren who previously had no hope. One of the most likely candidates turned out to be her uncle's first son, Bean. The head of the family said she would choose an heir among her grandchildren, and if he was truly outstanding, it wouldn't matter which branch he came from. Bean was strong, but he had a cruel nature, and because of him, many innocent servants and families of Beluga suffered. And now the girl begins to remember what disaster Bean brought to the Beluga family. At that moment, someone passes by and bumps into the young lady. It's the same bully from the class. He smirks and tells the little girl to watch where she's going. The girl calmly replies that if he wants to make noise, then she doesn't see the point in it. She asks him if he thinks she'll get angry and attack him like he does. He looks confused and asks what she's talking about. Then he gets angry and says that soon she will stop looking down on everyone. The girl replies that she always talks like that. The guy yells at her to keep bragging because he can't wait until she gets kicked out. Calypso wonders what kind of nonsense this is, and if there's any reason why she could be kicked out. The guy yells that she'll regret even touching Bean, and then she remembers that there really were guys at school who called themselves Bean's subordinates. She tells the bully, that's fine, let him go and tell Bean everything, because she too is curious why she'll be kicked out. The guy clenches his fists and says he's not joking. Calypso replies that she didn't think he was joking and she's so scared that she'll wait until he tells Bean everything. The guy looks angrily at the rack of swords and grabs one of them. He lunges at Calypso, screaming that he won't leave her alone. The girl dodges and realizes she doesn't want to fight seriously, but if he hits her, she'll be hurt. So she jumps even higher, realizing that there is no other way out. She remembers her father's words and delivers a precise blow to the boy's head. He falls. Calypso pushes the sword away so it doesn't fall next to him. She says it's dangerous, and at that moment, Lila enters the room and sees the sword flying at her feet. The woman lifts him with the force of water and asks what's going on. She tells Mr. Karan that decorative swords are not intended for combat. The boy shouts out the mistress's name and tries to justify himself, but she replies that he will tell the rest in the disciplinary room. She adds that, no matter how important hierarchy is, they will not tolerate the use of weapons for harm. After that, she leads the boy away. The main character thanks Layla, but she says that it's not worth it. She explains that she must make fair decisions. Calypso replies that she must remain neutral, and Layla says that neutrality is justice. With a warm smile, Calypso thanks her and asks whether she needs to write an explanatory note or go to the disciplinary room. Layla replies that she heard everything in the hallway and that the girl doesn't need to go anywhere. She looks at her, sees how she's almost beaming, and sighs deeply. She says it's like she's talking to an A student, and that someone asked her to take care of Calypso. It was his first request, and it surprises her. When asked who it was, Layla replies that it was her father, Mr. Pierre. The girl is in shock, and that evening she paces the room, wondering what to do. Layla said that she was indebted to Pierre and was following him. Calypso realizes that by using Pierre, she's been deceiving everyone, and that Layla has become his subordinate. She wonders what kind of Pierre awaits her on the other side of the door. She's afraid he'll ask if she had fun deceiving him all this time. Calypso realizes she has nothing to say in her defense. Perhaps it's time to stop pretending. She reaches for the door, deciding to just meet him first. She walks into the room and sees her father. Pierre stands there, expressionless and lost in thought. He remembers the girl asking if he needed a second student and realizes her deception was all too obvious. He wanted to stop all this and end the game of teacher and student. But when she happily said she had won, he couldn't do it. He decided that he could stop everything at any moment. But now he understands that for the first time he doesn't want to let someone go, although he doesn't know why. They look at each other and are silent. Calypso thinks how awkward this is. Pierre notices the note in her hands and asks what it is. The girl replies that she brought it for the teacher. She shows him the piece of paper and asks if he's interested in what's in it. He says he's not particularly interested. Calypso thinks she's managed to start a conversation. He looks normal and doesn't seem angry. She decides not to tell the truth first, for now, and to try to act according to the plan. She says she'll cook a fantastic dish today. Pierre, surprised, asks if she's really going to cook it. He sits down at the table and waits for her. After a while, Calypso returns with a tray and asks how long he waited. She says the dish perfectly addresses his nutritional balance. Pierre is surprised, and she replies that the chef helped a little. She asks to wait impatiently and lifts the lid of the tray. A strange dish appears before Pierre. He says she promised to take his diet into account, and she replies that it contains all 3 nutrient groups. She adds that she wanted to apologize to him, and the dish has the same meaning. She says that she suddenly asked to take a second student and brought her brother. Calypso admits it was reckless and asks him to accept her apology. Pierre recalls the first time she greeted him with a bright smile. Now, seeing her sadness, he sighs and asks her to explain the dish. The girl doesn't understand what he means. Pierre says that since she served the dish, she should tell everyone about it. Calypso explains that the recipe was given to her by Ruga and Ruga of the Beluga family. Pierre, at this time, uses the power of water and heals her hands. The girl doesn't notice and asks him how he likes the dish. He replies that he didn't like it. Then he says he won't be taking on any more students. Calypso says she understands and apologizes. He asks her to just not make that mistake again. After that, she wonders if she can ask a question. Pierre asks what happened. The girl says something strange happened at school today. She adds that her father asked Layla to look after her. Calypso asks what he thinks about it, realizing that she has already been caught, but she still pretends not to understand anything. Pierre asks what's the matter. Calypso thinks about the Dragon Duke and how this world could be destroyed. Now she hates things she's unsure of. Pierre asks why she even asks him such questions, since he's not her father. Calypso wonders when he realized she was lying and why he was helping her. She clenches her fist and realizes that this is it. Pierre takes another bite of the dish and thinks it's the first time he's ever eaten anything like this. Calypso says he's the same age as her father, so she was interested in his opinion. She understands that if he supports her pretense, then why doesn't he say anything? Pierre replies that adults are all the same. The girl remains silent, understanding that he doesn't want to discuss it. Pierre puts down the cutlery and says that perhaps her father simply values her and loves her. That's the answer. Calypso looks at her hands and sees that the wound has already healed. She folds them and says that is probably true. The next day, the brother watches the training in horror. Calypso walks with a huge boulder on her shoulders and is already counting her 335th step. Her father tells her to strengthen her legs. The boy wonders how much this stone weighs, and how a 3-year-old child can carry a boulder hundreds of times heavier than himself. He realizes that Calypso has converted the power of water into pure muscular power. Calypso sees the stone in the teacher's hands and asks if he's really going to throw it. Pierre replies that he is and tells her to dodge it. She dodges the stones and screams that this way she can plunge into eternal sleep, but she still wants to live. The brother, looking at this, understands that he had no chance of winning. Calypso recalls that Aganor was considered a genius from childhood. But his strength was not enough. He wanted to know his limits and looked for a worthy opponent. As his power grew, no one dared to fight him, and he began to defeat the strongest one after another. Such was Aganor's joy until one day his younger sister appeared before him. Rumor had it she was his blood relative. Calypso tells the teacher that the plan for today is complete. Pierre replies that she's doing great and will add another assignment. Her brother understands that her father cares for her, even though she calls him teacher. Pierre tells her to avoid sudden movements, and Calypso thinks that sounds strange. The brother understands that there is no doubt, Calypso is real and powerful. To survive next to her, you need to respect her and do what she says. But he's not sure he can handle such a crazy workout. Pierre turns to his son and says that now it's his turn. He sees that he is silent and asks what happened. Aganor says he would like a smaller stone than Calypso's. Calypso and Pierre are shocked. Pierre asks if he has no pride at all. Aganor honestly replies that he does not. He says that he will become strong within the limits of his abilities. Calypso falls under the weight of the boulders and barely makes it to the teacher, asking if the training is over. Pierre replies yes, and now it's the boy's turn. Calypso says it's finally time to rest. Aganor sees a glass of water and towels and takes them with the power of water. He approaches his sister and tells her she's done a good job. Calypso takes the towel and wonders what's wrong with it. She notices that his eyes shine too brightly. He says it's amazing and that she's really cool. Calypso takes a glass of ice and says yes. Aganor says he realized something while looking at her and asks for a favor. Calypso asks what it is. The young lady asks him to tell her what's going on first and promises to listen. The boy begins his story, saying he has 2 brothers, and the second one is named Atlan. The protagonist replies that she knows that. Then the young man asks her to call the second brother as well. The girl, shocked, asks what he's even talking about. She realizes that only his sister could summon the brash and hot-tempered Atlan, and even his brother is no match for his temperament. So, with a sinister smile, the guy decides that he can't be the only loser. After this, he smiles warmly and asks her to use him so hard that he cannot recover immediately. A little later, the main character sits on a bench and reflects on her brother's words. She remembers Atlan and realizes that in some ways he is similar to Bean, but differs in that he loves pranks. Since both her brothers hate losing, they must have never been close. The young lady wonders if the relationship between Aganor and Atlan was bad. After all, in their past lives, they were perfect companions. While they weren't brother and sister, their bond was still very strong. In difficult moments, they didn't retreat, even through pain. The girl understands that they won't encounter Atlan for now and decides to forget Aganor's insane words. At this moment, the twins approach her and ask what she's doing. The girl recalls her brother's final words. He begged her to live and was ready to give his life for them. The young lady understands that everything is different now and tells the twins that they are brothers too. They answer yes and ask why. When she asks if they get along, they both answer in unison that they don't. One says Ruba always claims he's older, while the other argues and suggests asking her mother. The young lady tries to calm them down and says that she understands, so they shouldn't fight. One of the guys adds that Karan didn't come today either. The main character replies that it is true, he has not been seen for several days. The twins say the atmosphere in the classroom has become strained without Karan, as if he's split in 2. The girl replies that she understands and wonders how everyone was divided. A little while later, she walks down the hallway and Lila approaches her, asking if she is coming back. The protagonist replies yes and asks if she needs anything. Layla asks her to come closer and asks if she knows about the upcoming family gathering. The girl replies that she knows and that the head of the family is present. Layla confirms and advises caution, as promising candidates often disappear right before the meeting. The main character thanks him for his concern and says everything is fine because Dad will protect her and Layla will be there too. Layla replies that she still has to be vigilant because there are many cracks in the family. The girl says that she will remember this, but she understands to herself that her father will not protect her. She has a family meeting to prepare for and is worried about the atmosphere in the classroom. The young lady's brother says that it might be due to a change of air. The girl asks Aganor why he's here. He replies that he's going with her to see the teacher. She wonders if they should walk together, and he says they can do it every day. He adds that he was surprised to see her on a stretcher and asks if she chose her subordinates. Then he asks about their rank and says with a grin that he can become first if he beats these children. The main character replies that if he touches them, she will put him into eternal sleep. The guy says he wants to try. The young lady grabs him by the collar and asks where his conscience is, because these are little children. She lets her brother go and says that the main candidates for the inheritance are Bean and Solte. Aganor agrees, saying it's a similar atmosphere in high school. Then he asks what she plans to do at the family reunion. The young lady replies that this is her first time participating. Aganor tells her not to worry, as he will introduce her. She understands that would be nice, although it would be better if her father did it. The guy warns her to be careful, because before the meeting, different people gather and they even attacked him and his brothers. He says he doesn't think she'll lose and asks further. He asks her to use it at the right moment. The girl smiles, grabs his cheek, and tells him not to bother. The guy gasps and gives in. A few days later, the young lady walks through the schoolyard and realizes that the last few days have been calm. She reads a note ordering her to come quietly to the backyard, otherwise her beloved twins will be in danger. The main character clutches the note and thinks how stupid this is and how similar it is to the tactics of a third-rate villain. She decides to see the smug face of the enemy and goes to the indicated place. There she is, met by the same hooligan, and is surprised that she came. One of the guys asks if it's her and says it was easier than he thought. Then he asks if it's true that this rat caused them problems. The main character gets angry and replies that he's the rat. She asks why he decided to compare her to something earthly, and even take weak children hostage. She says he has a brain smaller than a jellyfish. The guy frowns and replies that he's only heard rumors. He adds that it's interesting because she really can talk, and that it's not for nothing that her grandmother is interested in her. The main character pushes his hand away. A mark remains on the skin, and the young man is surprised. The girl asks if her grandmother would have cared if these were just words, and calls him an idiot. She then demands that he give her the twins. Otherwise, she says, everyone will be held accountable. The guy just grins and calls it funny. He says that being Pierre's child isn't the only thing she can be proud of. Calypso replies that her father is the famous Pierre Aquasiadel. The henchmen are at a loss, unsure what to do. Bean asks if she's really relying solely on her father. The girl replies no, and that she has inherited most of his talent. Then she yells for Ruga and Ruba to scream right now. Bean turns to them in bewilderment. The protagonist realizes that all aquatic creatures have evolved with suitable weapons, and the killer whales' strength lies in their unity. But every force has a counterforce, and that is precisely what Ruga and Ruba's weapons are. It's a piercing, ultrasonic scream. The young lady covers her ears and addresses Aganor. She asks him to save the twins, and the guy tells her to leave it to him. Bean thinks these twins are nothing but trouble. The protagonist asks him what he's even looking at. She grabs him by the collar, and when he looks up, he sees a fist flying towards his face. The girl says that she is his opponent and hits him with all her might. After the blow, the guy looks angrily at Calypso and calls her a loser. The main character asks what it's like to be defeated by a non-entity. She screams at Aganor to protect the twins at all costs. He asks if she can handle it herself, and she replies, of course. She asks him who she thinks she is, and challenges the other killer whales to a fight, asking if they are scared. A great fight begins. The third brother watches and wonders if this can even be called a battle. After all, killer whale fights are usually graceful and based on the power of water. This looks more like a dog pit. One of the guys is yelling at the other to get the girl out. Bean orders him to hit her and use the power of water, asking if he can't just throw her off. Aganor thinks that in this state, his sister is even better than his first brother, and he can't help but smile at the thought. The girl continues to scatter Bean's minions. Someone says that if they don't catch the child, they'll have to take the twins hostage again. But then someone approaches them. He uses his power, and the killer whales cry out in pain. They scream that they are going to go deaf, and that their ears hurt terribly. The man approaches Prince Aganor and says that he came running as soon as he contacted him. This is the twins' father. He asks what's going on here. One of the boys tells him with tears that Ruga doesn't open his eyes. The third brother says there will be explanations later. He adds that his little sister's fight is coming to an end. The girl realizes they're near a building, and after all the noise, someone's bound to come. At that very moment, Layla comes running and demands that they stop, asking what they have done here. The main character just smirks. A little later, she's sitting on the couch, already healed. Layla asks for an explanation. The girl asks for a minute to calm down, and the woman agrees. The main character takes a sip of tea and says that she will immediately say that they were the first to suffer. More precisely, the victims were the Beluga twins, who were only about 7 years old. She says she knows that orcas don't protect babies, but that only applies to fighting whales, and asks if that's true. Then he slaps the table and says that there are rules at school that must be followed. Middle school students are under no circumstances allowed to harm elementary school students. Everyone thinks the rule is old, and everyone will get away with it unless they get caught. But it is announced in the name of the killer whales' ancestors, and it should not be taken lightly. Therefore, Calypso Aquasiadel formally requests the Disciplinary Committee. The girl understands that Bean is confident in himself and his status, and hopes to get out of this mess unscathed. But she knows that Grandma hates breaking rules more than violence, and he doesn't know her character well. She understands she won't attack everyone, and Bean is still a greenhorn. Layla says that, at her request, a high disciplinary committee will be convened. And since the princess is an interested party, her participation is mandatory. The young lady leans back on the sofa and says that of course it's not difficult. Layla adds that she must be accompanied by a guardian at the committee meeting. The girl is surprised. Layla explains that, in other words, she needs to bring her father. The young lady wonders what expression he will have on his face and doesn't know what to do. After a little while, Layla says goodbye to her. The girl understands that she was only planning a meeting and did not think that a guardian would be needed, since she was hearing about it for the first time. She thinks what to say and how to explain to Pierre that she had a fight with Bean, and asks him to go to the committee as her father. She is afraid of what will happen if he says that he is not her father. At this time, someone comes up to her and says that he was waiting for her, and the girl looks at this person. She realizes that the man standing before her is the twins' father. The man introduces himself, says his name is Ilia Beluga, and explains that he has come to thank her. The girl asks how Ruga and Ruba are. The man replies that his wife, the head of the Beluga family, has already taken the children, and thanks the lady again. He adds that if she had not contacted them in advance, he might not have made it on time. The girl replies that she simply did what she had to, and besides, Ruga and Ruba got involved in everything because of her. That's why the main character asks for forgiveness on behalf of the stupid killer whales. She says that orcas believe that they can do anything because of their strength, and therefore disregard morals, ethics, and rules. Calypso adds that she is also responsible for Ruga and Ruba being drawn into the orcas' atrocities. She apologizes again. The man is surprised, but then says it's hard to expect kindness from the killer whales. He admits that these creatures are far from moral. The young woman understands how hurtful this is, but the man adds that after meeting her, his opinion has changed. Now he says he accepts the apology. The girl understands that many people are thinking the same thing, but it's difficult to say out loud, because hearing the truth isn't always pleasant. Memories from her past life surface in her mind. Her older brother said he even felt sorry for the Belugs, because Bean had threatened them, demanding their submission, and when they refused, he had plunged them all into eternal sleep. And although Ruba was an outstanding warrior and Beluga, he knew how to fight on equal terms. The young lady realizes that she has remembered everything and understands that she will never be able to get along with Bean. She thanks the man and says that she will visit Ruba soon. The man smiles and replies that that's wonderful, because the children will be happy. After that, time continues to tick along. Several boys are walking down the hallway. One asks the other if he's heard rumors about the lady, and the other asks if it's about her fighting Mr. Bean and winning. They say Bean was completely defeated. The main character realizes that rumors of the little lady who knocked out Bean have spread like wildfire through elementary, middle, and high schools. One of the boys calls it nonsense, saying it's impossible for a gentleman to lose to an elementary school girl, especially without awakening. At this point, the young man with gray hair suggests summing things up. He says that Bean and the lady fought, and the lady won a decisive victory. He then turns to Atlanta and asks what he thinks and if he will say anything. Atlanta rises and coldly asks if he wants to enter eternal sleep. The gray-haired boy is startled, jumps up, says no, and again asks his friend to speak up. After all, she is his sister. Atlanta thinks for a moment and tells him not to be ridiculous, since he doesn't have a sister. He adds that if he's woken up again, he'll definitely put him into eternal sleep. The boy cries out that he understands and realizes his friend is furious. At the university, everyone is minding their own business. Someone asks what the gentleman thinks about the rumors about the lady. A boy sits with a book and remains silent. This is Calypso's older brother, Bellis. He says that if someone has committed a misdeed, they must be punished. Two girls ask what he means. Bellis replies that breaking the rules is what his grandmother hates the most, and the real problem is not Bean at all. At this time, the main character exclaims with a smile that she won the group fight. She says that all this is thanks to the teacher's lessons, and it was he who helped her achieve victory. But deep down, the girl wonders how she felt so bad after the fight, because children get tired too. When she looks at her father, she sees his displeasure and doesn't understand the reason. Calypso realizes he needs to be in a good mood to talk about the disciplinary committee. However, the man says that only a fight without injuries can be called a victory. The girl asks how one can win without getting hurt. The man replies that he himself has won without a single scratch. Calypso counters that she hasn't even awakened. The man looks at her coldly and reminds her that from the moment she called him teacher, she decided to follow his words as a law. The young lady is frightened and agrees. Pierre says that a victory with wounds cannot be considered real. It's simply a lack of ability. The girl thinks that he is either praising her or scolding her, and does not understand whether he thinks that at her age it is easy to win. With tears in her eyes, she thinks how he cannot compliment her because she tries harder than anyone else and always gives it her all. She turns and walks away. Her father asks where she's going, and the girl replies that she doesn't know, simply continuing to walk. As she leaves, Calypso thinks that her real dad would never do something like that. She remembers how warmly he treated her and realizes how much she misses him. But Pierre lifts the baby with the power of water. He says her body is a weapon. The girl asks what that means. The man explains that if a weapon isn't maintained, it breaks or jams. The same thing happens to her body, and as a teacher, he reproaches her for neglecting this weapon. After all, a weapon that has been perfected can be used throughout one's life. And he himself is the man who failed to create this weapon. The baby understands that despite all his mighty strength, which others admire, he is an unfortunate and terminally ill orca. And he himself considers his life a failure. She recalls her brother's words from a past life. He said that until Monsieur Pierre closed his eyes, there wasn't a day when he didn't attract attention. And the girl understands that, unable to change his weak body, he lived under unwanted gazes until he fell into eternal sleep. The girl realizes she lacks two things: powerful strength and a healthy body. If she had both, everything would be different. She asks if she was really wrong to be wounded, and if such a victory is really considered wrong. The young lady wonders how she can win as proudly as he does. After all, she can't do it without cunning. His victory would always be too easy, and she can't even awaken the power of water. The man says that even if he answers, she still won't listen. He adds that teacher-student relationships inevitably break down and asks if she herself didn't want him to remain cold and distant. The girl hears depression in his voice and wonders if she is imagining it. But then she realizes it's not an illusion and asks if he was worried about her. The man says that her father talked about how much he loved her, and therefore he does not know what to say at such moments. The little girl replies that he needs to say that he was worried, then scold him, hug him tightly, and finally confess his love for his daughter. After this, she asks the teacher to repeat at least one phrase, to say that he was worried about her. The man looks at the girl and gently strokes her head. He then says that he was worried about Calypso. The little girl smiles and understands why he came despite his limp. Sometime later, she is sitting at the table with her brother, and he asks if this means that they will be present themselves. The girl replies that yes. She realizes that back then she was never able to talk about her parents' return. Now she realizes that she has no choice but to refuse to let her father return home. No matter how much she thought, she couldn't find a way to talk to him without consequences. The brother asks if everything will be okay, since this is a place where parents are required to participate. The young lady puts down the device and says that if it's just the two of them, they'll think of something. Asking the teacher so suddenly is too much. The boy asks why she can't tell her father everything right now, but Calypso replies that it's too early. She understands that the Duke will not see the dragon yet. She wants to stay with Pierre as they are now. The brother says he's not worried, since his younger sister's mistress has her own thoughts, but he's surprised that the higher disciplinary committee and the family meeting are taking place on the same day. Calypso confirms this. She realizes that she has spread so many rumors that even her appearance will attract attention, and she wants to see the face of her grandmother, who is ignoring her. Besides, Bane won't be able to attend, so there's no need to worry about that. The girl realizes that without Aganor, dealing with Beanie's gang would have been much more difficult. She thanks her brother for his help without asking any questions. The young man is surprised and says that he had fun, and that this is the first time he fought while defending someone. Calypso is surprised, saying it's to be expected, and that there will be more such moments in the future. He replies that if she says so, then so it will be, and the girl pauses to think. If he treats her like that, doesn't it sound like religion? At that moment, the maid enters the room and is surprised. Another maid says it's no wonder they asked for more tea, since the young master was there, and suggests they see how well the two get along. The maid approaches the boy, says that he is handsome, and that they really do look alike. The boy crawls under the table and cries out that they need to talk about tomorrow's disciplinary committee meeting. Calypso realizes she's been exposed. The girl replies that it is true, and orders the Herring sisters to leave immediately. When the girls leave, she tells her brother that tomorrow he will follow her words. She asks you to listen carefully and explains exactly what needs to be done. The guy agrees and says that he understands everything but asks if everything will be okay, since they won't even tell their father. The little girl smiles and tells Aganor to believe that they are enough. He understands that he completely trusts his little sister, but still has doubts. The next day, it's time for the Supreme Council. The young lady steps out of the carriage and realizes the meeting is about to begin. She thinks how uncomfortable her clothes are and remembers how the Herring sisters shouted that the lady needed a suit. They told her to trust them, and the girl understands that even when she thought it was unimportant, they did not listen to her. Now Calypso realizes that she felt sincerity in them, and it was nice. The maid said that clothes can be a weapon. The girl remembers how her father called her body a weapon and smiles. At that moment, someone calls her and asks her to come in. The little girl agrees and says she's coming. As she approaches, she is glad that she was not the first to raise the issue of calling the parents, since Pierre also wanted to maintain the pretense of a teacher-student relationship. The girl understands that she can handle it herself, since she is used to solving everything alone, and goes into one of the rooms. Everyone inside starts whispering, saying that this is it. Lady Calypso. People look at her in shock and think how beautiful she is. They then doubt whether such a small girl can fight, but remember that Pierre's blood flows through her. Calypso realizes that because it coincides with a family gathering, there aren't many people there, and most have come specifically to see her. She finds it odd that the dates coincided, as Lila wouldn't do something like that. The woman turns to the lady and says that she has finally arrived. She notices that today the girl looks completely different than usual. The young lady replies that the maids have done their best and asks if it's beautiful. The woman nods and says she may sit next to young Master Aganor. Layla thinks that Pierre's looks are also striking, but the lady is gorgeous in her own way and wonders if she inherited it from her mother. One of the women notices that the lady greeted Aganor warmly. The other is surprised as they said the brother and sister had a bad relationship, but they tell her that the rumors about the feud between Pierre's children are a lie. The baby looks around and understands. Bane is also here, but Uncle, as expected, did not come. She sees the guy staring at her, gives him the middle finger, and wonders where he's staring. Uncle was supposed to please Grandma, but Auntie came instead. This makes everything seem even more complicated. After all the power of the uncle's side is concentrated here, and a descendant of the collateral line is valued more highly than an incompetent direct heir. At this point, Layla asks everyone to be silent. She announces that the Supreme Disciplinary Committee is beginning its work. Layla asks everyone present, regardless of status, to swear in the name of the sea to tell only the truth, and then announces that the first accused is Bean. The boy takes an oath, and the woman turns to the victims, Lady Calypso and Lord Aganor. They also swear, but the conversation is suddenly interrupted. A woman declares that, as the chair of the high school's disciplinary committee, she has something to say. This is Chaya, a representative of the Orca offshoot. She says the hearing concerns minors, meaning they were notified in advance that a guardian would be present. She then asks why there's no guardian with Calypso and Aganor. The young lady realizes that the moment has arrived. She hoped to slip through thanks to Layla, who had noticed her father's absence and probably wanted to help. But sitting opposite is an old friend of my grandmother's, a person of extreme principle. Calypso says they don't have a guardian, even though the law requires that immatures be accompanied. She declares that she and Aganor are mature enough to defend themselves. The room immediately begins to whisper and ask why Pierre didn't come. Some people assume that he is sick. Others remind him of the law. Layla rises and demands silence, confirming that Calypso and Aganor indeed have no guardian. The head of the family's friend screams that this cannot be done, because the law is the law, and demands that the guardian be called immediately. Calypso realizes that this woman is not helping at all. Vine smirks and asks why she doesn't just do it. He mockingly says that the kids supposedly don't have a father. Someone laughs. Another rushes the meeting because of the family council. The grandmother's friend again demands silence and repeats that the children are without a guardian. Calypso calms down. Having expected this turn of events, the woman announces that the meeting will be cancelled. The girl thinks that she needs to keep her cool and look for a way out. At that moment, another man enters the room, saying that the law is the law. The young lady looks at him in surprise. The man states that, of course, it must be observed. He says his son and daughter's guardian is here now. Calypso is shocked, wondering how this is possible. For the first time in 4 regressions, she's in such a panic. She looks at her brother and realizes he didn't expect this either. But she can't show her surprise. There are already too many rumors to refute them. The girl gets up and decides to act. With a smile, she runs up to her father and calls him Daddy. She jumps towards him, mentally asking him to catch her. The man catches her and apologizes for being late. Calypso asks if he's feeling all right. She thought he wouldn't be able to come and mentally begged him to play along. The father replies that he feels well and seems to have made her worry. The committee members look at them in bewilderment. The man asks if further confirmation is needed. Layla replies that participation is confirmed. Chaya tells Pierre that they haven't seen each other for a long time, and she knew he wouldn't be able to come, but he interrupts her and says that his daughter was so worried that she didn't tell him in time. He admits he's a little late. Calypso wonders if he could always say that. Bean loses his temper and shouts that this is wrong because the man is late. Layla asks Bean to be quiet, reminding him that the situation is recognized by everyone. The guy starts to release his power and asks her if she thinks he'll just keep quiet. Someone demands that he calm down. The woman says the decision was made by the members of the meeting. Bean sits down angrily. Calypso understands that his intervention will only make things worse. She realizes that punishment is now inevitable, and that it is the committee that determines its measure. If he had used force, everyone would have seen Bean on the floor. That would be a complete disgrace. Layla asks Monsieur Pierre to take his place. Calypso reminds herself to remember to smile. She looks at her father and sees him grinning, as if he's laughing openly. Layla demands silence and says the misunderstanding has been resolved, and the meeting will continue. But a servant bursts into the hall and shouts that he is from the head of the family. He announces that the Supreme Disciplinary Committee must immediately adjourn the meeting and move the trial to the Blue Room. There, the committee will continue its work within the framework of a family meeting in the presence of the head of the family. Calypso is shocked to think what this means. She understands that this should not happen, because at the family meeting, Bina will have an advantage. Here, his punishment was inevitable, but if everything is transferred. There, forces supporting Bina will gather, and he will be able to avoid a fair verdict. Aganor whispers to his sister what they should do. Calypso replies that nothing, grandmother's order is absolute. She thinks with regret how she wanted to see Bean punished. The father says everything is fine. The girl asks what he means. He replies that everything she's thinking about will work out, and asks her not to pretend to be polite. Calypso says she understands. On the way to another room, she notices that her father is a real celebrity. Everyone looks at them. She asks if she can walk alone, but his answer leaves her speechless. She decides to let the rumors spread, let people watch. But she still doesn't understand why Dad is doing this. Her brother asks if she's been to the Blue Hall. Calypso replies that no, although in her mind she knows that she was. Aganor explains that 3 major halls are used for meetings, and the Blue is one of them. He says they've arrived. The girl remembers that the Blue Room has 2 meanings. Firstly, because of the bright blue door. Secondly, It's where the waves rise. The history of the killer whales has been turbulent for many generations. The name was given because of the unrest emanating from here, and Calypso realizes that she is returning to this place. At the entrance, they announce that Monsieur Pierre, Monsieur Aganor, and Madame Calypso have arrived. Everyone in the room is surprised. Is it really Pierre? The woman asks who has come, and whether it is her son, whom she thought had long been immersed in eternal sleep. The man bows and greets the head of the family. She quips that it was high time he left and entered into eternal sleep, yet he's still alive. There is silence in the room, but the little girl breaks it. She greets her grandmother and says she looks younger. The two men watch with stony faces. The woman replies that the girl does too. She points to her son and says that smart children learn flattery, and Calypso is better at it than her impudent father. The girl whispers to her dad that her grandmother loves to make sarcastic remarks, and that he should learn from her. She says everything is fine and they can practice. Her brother understands that there's clearly more to it than that. Pierre smiles and says that the advice is interesting and he will remember it. Calypso is amazed to think that he can smile like that. One of the women whispers that Pierre is smiling, and the rumors about his love for his youngest daughter are true. Someone stands up and addresses the head of the family. This is Pierre's older brother, Lodosin Aquasiadel. He proposes to continue the adjourned meeting. He says he's glad to see his brother, but not glad enough to stop the process. Others notice that Pierre is ignoring him. The head of the family smiles and asks if Lodosin is interfering in her conversation. He quickly apologizes to his mother. Calypso realizes that he has been beautifully put down and thinks that it serves him right. The little girl understands this is good, but immediately wonders where their seats are. One of the maids assures them she will lead them to the right place. When they sit down at the table, people immediately start whispering, wondering why Monsieur Pierre is sitting so far away. The main character immediately realizes that this is too far from the place of the head in the center, and no matter how you look at it, it looks like an open disregard. So the little girl turns to her dad and asks what they should do, since their name is clearly being neglected now. She says they're sitting too far away and Grandma can't hear her, and then asks if he's even listening, as now is not the time to pretend. The man merely jokes that she's gaping like a crucian carp, but the little girl replies that now is not the time for quiet jokes. However, the man says there is no need to worry about whether she will be heard. Her words will still have to be heard. After all, they came not to a family meeting, but to a disciplinary committee. He reminds her of the purpose and essence. The girl realizes that their real target is the disciplinary committee. At that moment, another man appears, and the room fills with whispers. Someone says he simply couldn't help but come. The guy turns to his grandmother and states that she has a reason to bring out a new agenda today. After all, everyone gathered precisely for her voice. He asks to hear her will. It turns out to be Calypso's first elder brother, Bellis Aquasiadel. The woman replies that his speech is especially smooth today, and the guy modestly says that his grandmother is overpraising him. She orders him to come over and sit to the side. The boy complies, and the main character realizes that this clever opportunist is her older brother. Ogula says that she heard about an interesting incident at the educational institution. She orders those involved to come forward, and Calypso and Bean approach her. The woman offers to explain why they created a disturbance in the formal establishment under her control. Bean says with a smile that he will go first. He asks if it can even be called a mess, since something so insignificant happened that it is not worth her attention. The guy says that the life of the killer whales is a struggle, and every moment is like a battle. And because of such a simple competition, they open a strict disciplinary committee which, according to him, only undermines the authority of the orcas as the strongest sea beastmen. The main character wonders if he understands that his opponent is a 3-year-old child but decides to see how far he will go. Grandma asks if he claims that all this is an exaggerated rumor and that in fact it was just a minor incident. The young man replies that he only wanted to see his younger cousin, about whom there are rumors, and therefore called her to meet him. The young lady thinks that this is a strange acquaintance if it begins with threats after the kidnapping of Ruga and Ruba. The guy says that upon seeing him, his sister immediately began to shame his father and asks what that was all about. He assumes that she wanted to boast that she is the daughter of the strongest orca, Mr. Pierre. The girl understands that he was the one who first spoke ill of her parents, and now he dared to touch her father, and only she has the right to talk about her dad. The guy adds that he has a witness who will confirm his words. One of the young men enters the hall, and the little girl wonders who he is. The guy loudly declares that they just wanted to help Mr. Bean, but received ordinary violence in response. He points to the main character and says that she is the daughter of Mr. Pierre, and that the fight was unequal from the very beginning. The young lady realizes that they are indeed witnesses, and her heart sinks slightly. She sighs, thinking they're bragging about getting punched by a 3-year-old girl. The second guy confirms this. He says that the lady was the first to humiliate Mr. Bean, and therefore there is no lie in the words of the witnesses. One of the boys whispers to the other whether he played well, as he was too nervous in front of the head of the family, and Calypso wonders who they take her for, since they're so shameless about saying such a thing. Grandma asks if Bean is ultimately to blame. The guy smirks and says that moving the disciplinary committee to a family meeting probably has a special meaning. And so he is going to reveal the true nature of this nasty cousin. The little girl asks what he even means. The guy declares that even being the daughter of Mr. Pierre, she does not match his strength and dignity. He adds that since she lies as easily as she breathes, her training was a mistake. The little girl thinks he lies just as easily. She yawns, feeling bored, and wonders when it would be best to counterattack. Ogula sums up his words by saying that he blames the tadpole with the wrong upbringing for disturbing the family order. Bean confirms that this is exactly what he meant to say. A woman approaches a young lady and says that's how it is, a non-entity without recognition. She claims that the girl dared to disobey one of the heirs and behaved rudely without knowing fear or order. Then, using the power of water, he lifts the baby into the air. The force of the water compresses her, and Calypso understands how great the power of the head of the family is, but she knows that she must endure. This is a moral battle. However, it is becoming increasingly difficult for her to breathe, and she understands that she may soon suffocate. Suddenly, the pressure disappears, and the baby realizes that she is now protected by a much stronger protection. Pierre turns to the head of the family and says that this child is only 3 years old. The woman replies that he should not make a fuss, because if the girl cannot withstand even this, then she is a disgrace to the family. She asks how he raised her if he didn't teach her the basics of Orca society. She calls the girl a weakling who's lost control. The little girl thinks the old poker nearly put her to sleep forever and doesn't understand what she's saying. The woman asks if Pierre raised the child personally. Calypso understands that if her father abandons her now, then the whole story about his love and care will fall apart. She silently begs him to at least not say that she's not his daughter. And the man replies that he taught her according to his own rules. The little girl is surprised, and Pierre gets up and says that he taught her to always wound if a fight starts, and that she acted exactly as he taught her. Grandma sits back down and sighs, saying that she never expected to see him defend another creature and that he ruined all her fun. The man points to his daughter and offers to hear the story from her personally. He asks if that's the role of the chairperson. The girl understands that she's being given the chance she's always dreamed of. A chance to assert herself and show strength. She wonders if they really thought she'd miss it. She turns to her grandmother and says that she wants to ask only one thing. She asks if it is true that in the Orca family, the strong are not held accountable for their actions. The woman answers affirmatively. Calypso says that today they are discussing struggle and dignity, but something else is more important. She states that if Grandma is lenient, she will tell an interesting fact. Bean raises his hand, asking to speak. Calypso wonders why this idiot is bothering her. Since his turn is over, the woman orders him to stop. She turns to Calypso Aqua Citadel and tells him to continue. The little girl asks how many people Bean brought on the day of the fight. At least 10. Aganor took on 3, and she fought the remaining 7 herself, and she was the victor. Bean completely lost to her 3-year-old self. Calypso thinks he's an idiot and shouldn't have brought witnesses. She smirks, realizing he helped her himself. The audience begins to say that the witnesses also acknowledged her strength. The baby declares that according to the rules of the Orca family, she is the winner, and Bean has no right to challenge her. Plus, her non-Kasatka friend was drawn into the fight that day, and Bean threatened that if she didn't fight, he would put her friend into eternal sleep. Therefore, all her actions were for the sake of protecting her friend. She asks her grandmother where she is at fault, reminding her that the Orcas are the patrons of the aquatic beastmen. Between Orcas, everything is decided by duel, but she clearly said not to do this with weaker families. The woman notes that the girl knows too much for her age. She admits that she was threatened, had to fight, and won. She finds the story amusing. She then asks if the girl has any witnesses, and Calypso realizes that this is a key moment. Aganor is involved, Ruga and Ruba are still recovering, and it seems there are no witnesses. But the little girl suddenly wonders if that's true. One of the women in the audience raises her hand. She states that she is ready to testify. Ogula is surprised and asks why. The woman says the lady's story mentioned friends who were threatened with eternal sleep, and they were her twin sons. The main character wonders if this is Ruga and Ruba's mother. She looks at the woman and understands that their family is influential enough to be here. The woman introduces herself as Ilia Beluga, head of the Beluga clan. She says one of her children was injured by Bean, suffered a severe head injury, and is on the verge of death. Calypso is shocked and wonders what this is all about, because she was told that Ruga was not in any danger. But she remembers their father's face and understands that the witness could also be lying. Bean already lied, so they can too. And the little girl suddenly realizes she likes belugas. Ilia appeals to the head of the family, asking him to take the matter seriously, since her child was injured in the Orcas showdown. She says that as a representative of the vassal families, she cannot stand aside, and he believes that this incident should not denigrate those Orcas who respect and do not torment the weak. The twins' father claims he was the one who reported the incident and can provide additional witnesses, but the young lady says she thinks there are already enough witnesses. The woman stares intently at what is happening for a while, and then suddenly she starts laughing. Having calmed down, she says she's not interested in anyone who can't accept defeat from a 3-year-old. Bean, shocked, tries to object to his grandmother, but she sharply orders him to shut up, and he immediately becomes quiet. The woman says that everything that happened was absurd, but she heard the baby and will now make a decision. She says that Bain Aquasidel, in a show of his power, wounded a child from an important vassal family. Moreover, he violated the strict rules of the academy, tried to downplay his own mistakes, and dared to lie to the head of the family. Considering all this, the woman orders that Bain Aquasidel be expelled from the academy and placed under house arrest for a period of 1 year. The boy's father cries out, asking his mother to wait, and says that his son was mistaken, but begs her to take his merits into account and have mercy. The woman just smiles and turns to Calypso Aquasidel. She asks the girl what she thinks. The young lady grins maliciously in response, and she says that she has no objections to such punishment. She adds that Ruga and Ruba suffered the most in this incident, and therefore would like to hear the opinion of the head of the Beluga family. Ilia declares that she will follow her decision, as will Lady Calypso. The head of the family replies that this is good. Since the jury has no objections, the punishment is carried out. The protagonist understands that in Orca society, the age of graduation from the mid-level academy is extremely important as proof of ability. Besides, the guy won't be able to make connections under house arrest, and if he's truly talented, he might be able to attract his grandmother's attention and change her mind during this time. But the girl understands that he ended up in his place, not by force, but only by luck. In fact, attention should be paid to Sorte, the second uncle's son, and Bellis, her older brother. Now Calypso clearly sees how the line of succession has changed. Bain has sunk to the position of being neglected. This means that Bellis and Sorte will fight for supremacy, although the youngest lady doesn't care who becomes the leader. The woman says that she wants to add one more thing in the end. She declares that she recognizes Calypso Aquasidel, a member of the main branch of the Orca family. The baby smiles, realizing she succeeded, and the audience bursts into applause. Calypso realizes that her goal of getting to the family gathering has been achieved, and she did not expect such a lavish debut. Her father strokes her head and tells her she's doing well. The little girl responds and understands that, no matter what. It's incredible to be the main character. She hugs her dad and tells him they won. The head of the family watches this from the side. She understands that usually the one who is personally represented by the head of the clan. Either he is overwhelmed by the burden of responsibility, or he is frightened. But this girl, on the contrary, relishes the attention. She has a high level of body enhancement and an innate talent for physical combat, even though she can't even create a drop of water. The woman understands that the sequence is broken, and she is already familiar with such a genius. She turns to Bellis and asks him to come closer. The guy comes up and asks if his grandmother called him. The woman asks what he thinks about what happened, since previously the record for the youngest person to be recognized belonged to him. She recalls recognizing Bellis as a direct descendant of the Orcas when he was just 6 years old. Now his younger sister has broken that record, and even Pierre, who hardly paid any attention to children, has come to her defense. Moreover, Calypso defeated his rival, Bain. The woman allows the boy to speak out boldly. Bellis says that the grandmother's punishment is fair, because one cannot show mercy to someone who breaks the rules. He adds that Calypso is also responsible, since, with her powers, she allowed her classmates to suffer. She understands that he considers his younger sister equally guilty as Bain. She says that such an answer was expected, but the guy only modestly remarks that his grandmother is flattering him. The little girl realizes that she heard everything, and that damn big brother is against her. She looks at him and realizes that the Disciplinary Committee was called because of the attack on her. And he declares that she is just as guilty as Bain. The girl decides that before leaving the mansion, she will correct his character. Atlanta runs up to his younger sister, praises her, and congratulates her on being recognized as the head of the family. He says the meeting is not over yet, but the atmosphere makes it clear that everything has already been decided. The main character agrees with him. She looks at Bean's family and thinks how fiercely they look at her. Baina's younger sister casts a disdainful glance at her and turns away. Calypso sticks out her tongue at her and thinks that now they should just sit quietly at home. The twins' mother turns to the head of the family and asks him to say a few words before the meeting ends. The woman grants permission. The white-haired lady declares that she will exercise her right to choose a vassal. Then she declares that, from now on, the Beluga clan will follow Lady Calypso Aquasidel. The young lady turns to her father, asking him to wait and lower her to the floor. The woman explains that this choice of vassal cannot be reversed. Their family will support Lady Calypso Aquasidel as the next heir. The main character is shocked, wondering what this even means. The entire room is stunned. The girl wonders if this woman understands that she's only 3 years old. But something else is far more important. She had no intention of becoming the head of the family.